So a great set of conversation we have had since morning, and now we want to talk about India as growth engine, how AI will play a major role in Indian economy. We have been talking about building homegrown models, transitioning from a service-driven economy to a product-driven economy. So now I would like to start the conversation from you, Ankit. We have been known as the back office of the world. So now to transition from that, from the service sector mindset to a product-led economy, what all is required?
I think, let's relook the question. The question what you're asking is from a service-based mindset, which was there inherently for last 2 decades. How can we make the shift, right? I think this shift started probably a decade back, right? Definitely when you start, there are ups and downs, right? So I think a decade back, if you would have thought about a startup, right, as a word, people would have thought that, you're perhaps not working or you're taking a break, right, like that, right? From that time till now, startup is really, the way right now. Most of the youngsters, they want to go build a startup, build a company, build something which is truly different, right? And if I just take AI as an example, right? India has inherently around 2,700 AI startups, native startups, right? In last 2 years, we have seen a significant growth in Gen AI startups, right? Again, when we started, I think 24, and we were around 150. It went to 350. Now last quarter, we came out with a report which says we had 890 Gen AI startups, right? Again, the point is that all of these predominantly are product startups, right? When we have that shift, right? Because at the end, the shift has to happen. There should be some sort of maturity, success, right? It takes time, and we have a fabulous success story on the stage, right? Zoho is a classic example. They are a product company. The shift has happened, and there are so many Zohos in making right now. So what I feel, I think that journey he started. We are at the mid stage. We'll see the peak soon, and we'll see a lot of companies who are product companies, innovation-led companies, than services companies.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nitin, I'll take that point forward with you as well. There was a time when India was seen, there was a decade when we were seen as the back office of the world, and we were pretty proud about it. Now this current decade is being seen as the AI decade of the world as well. Do you think this is also the decade when India will try to become the brain of the world when it comes to AI too?
No, absolutely. If you look at the last few years, last 5, 10, 15 years, we have largely been consumer of AI models and all the big tech development which has been happening around the world. But I think now that tectonic shift needs to happen where we move away from being consumer to actually becoming creators. And I'm already seeing that happening. And we have a beautiful example on the left side of me where Zoho is pretty much taking the lead on some of those stuff. So I see that happening. And there is more than enough impetus coming from the government as well. Some of the regulations, some of the support which is coming in for startup ecosystem, for SMEs. Very soon you will also see the AI governance framework coming in, and you will actually see that there are safe harbors and sandbox rules which have been identified in the framework, which actually equips the MSMEs and small enterprises and startups to do innovation without taking too much of risk, actually do experiments and not worry about failure. So that will be a big shift which will happen very soon.
Great. Both Nitin, you and Ankit, you have given Zoho as an example. So Praval, I really want to understand, because Zoho has had this approach always of being an Indian company, hardcore, developing everything from India. So how does that strategy play out, given that we have so many global companies and even Indian companies relying a lot on the global companies? So how does that strategy play out?
Sure. First of all, thank you, India Today Group, both Sakshi, you and Palak, for having me here, and for all of you for sitting out patiently today, all day here. My pleasure to be here. To your point, I think the most important thing to understand about this is whether AI or technology in general, a lot of these are hype cycles which you just can't adopt. I mean, you can't just avoid in any way. I mean, as a company, we've been around for close to 30 years now. We have seen different cycles, hype cycles, financial cycles, and whatnot. And one thing we've come to realize is these are long bets that you play. You know, it's very hard to build a Zoho overnight. You know, and I'm not saying it from Zoho lens. Anything that is truly worth its time, it has taken a while to build that, right? So AI happened now, but mobile happened, cloud happened. We've been through these cycles in the past as well. And I think if I was to answer your question, how we're able to do that, I think it's as simple as being patient and perseverance and playing the long game. And then playing the long game from our lens, which is looking at the market and the opportunity very differently. We're not in a rush. Even with the AI piece, we launched our LLM, but we're not looking at going after the big consumer LLMs of the world. That's not the motive. We're looking at enterprise LLM, which will be built for enterprises, for businesses. It's very similar to how a consumer search engine is very different from a business search engine, right? The context is different. The permissions across personal, individual, and org boundaries are different, etc. An LLM that I would use to find a recipe for something that I want to cook is very different from an LLM that I want to give a prompt and get some org data, right? So we have played these by our own rules of looking at things in the long term from a technology lens and everything building ourselves. So today we proudly run our own data centers, around 18 of them globally. We've built our own technology, own product. We dog food on that as well. And AI is the next step on that. We're building our own LLM, etc. Both on the data side and the compute side, we've always believed in building it from the ground up. And interestingly, even though we have customers in over 150 countries, more than 130 million users worldwide, all of the technology R&D happens from India. We may have employees in 75 countries today, but all the engineering and R&D happens in India. You know, pretty much South India, I would say, you know, including tier 2 and tier 3 towns and cities and villages. So I think that's the model that we've adopted. It takes a while to ship. We may not be the #1 player called out on every hype cycle, but we are okay with that. Okay, we want to be known for something that is more meaningful, checks the boxes of trust and privacy and everything from affordability to cater to the masses, rather than being in the news hype cycle for something that just came out last night. So that's the I would say the mindset that we've adopted. And I think to your point of becoming a product nation from a service nation is nothing but a mindset thing. We have the talent in the country. We've had people who've built the same things after going outside, right? And now we're seeing a lot of companies coming out of India. I was just sitting and chatting, and Ankit mentioned the number of AI-led and technology-led startups they are incubating and working together with, right? So we have all of that in India. It's a mindset thing. If we decide that we have together to make India as a technology powerhouse, I'm sure we'll get there. Again, it will take time, but I believe we'll get there.
We will get there. Ankit, in fact, let me come to you on that point itself. All the nations across the world, US, EU, China, everybody is just racing to develop their own national AI. You know, what is the sovereign AI strategy that you believe India must work on over the next few years? And what should it be based on? Should it be on the ethical side? What should it be really, focused on?
So great question. I think when we talk about AI sovereignty, I think let's equate it to the nuclear technology or technology as simple as that, UPI which we have built, right? Yes. Again, we have been, followers and in the technology world. Because of that, we have been, delayed, right? But again, that delay onset can really help us leapfrog, right? Again, let's see what US is doing. Let's see what China is doing. US, since the last 3 years or probably 5 years, they've been pumping money in AI research, and building larger model, which are trillion size, right? Parameter size. Now, are those models really deployable in production? We have to see, right? So I think they can invest, they can put money, they can build large models, which can, be eventually their goal of replacing a human or build an AGI, right? But again, the point is that for the purpose of the world, the humanity, we need models which can really solve problems, right? Those are micro problems, right? So we need not a strategy to build larger models. We need models which are vertical specific, SLMs, smaller models, micro models, even mini models, which basically can be deployed very targeted to solve a problem, right? I think that's what is the first thing. So I think this all started with, the model race. We should focus on building models which can solve problems for the nation, right? I think that's the first thing. And then if I equate back what India is doing through government initiatives like India Mission, we have allocated $1.2 billion, right? And government has, at least supported 5 to 6 different model initiatives. These are foundation model initiatives. These are foundation and vertical model initiatives. That's happening. Let's come to the second point, which is when we talk about someone AI, we should have a GPU cluster which can support that, right? Again, US, if I compare, has the companies who own all the the GPUs, right? Again, Nvidia, Intel, Qualcomm, all of them. So the point is that right now they have the leverage. They have deployed that leverage, and they have said they will give certain amount of GPUs to the countries who they see as partners, as second partners, and who are threats, right? China is in the threat category, right? Now China, having that, used that as an add-on advantage. They started their own research, right? As good as a week back, they've released something called Muxi C600. That's their own GPU, which they intend to replace any other GPUs with their using, right? That's what they have done, right? If I go probably a few months back, they have built a cluster which was using lower-end GPUs to compete with the larger, newer GPUs, right? I think they have done that. So I think what is learning for India in that, we should use our research, right? We should use our other knowledge base to create such clusters which can be in CDAC, which can be in India Mission, which can be in probably ISRO, DRDO, wherever, to create such clusters which can be utilized, right? We should not go for the bigger and mightier race. We should go for the race which is solving our problems, right? But at the same time, I think that's a larger problem to solve. Sure. But India is growing its GPU cluster base currently. When we started 2023, start on 24, we were less than few thousand GPUs. Now, at least we can say government is providing 32,000 GPUs. Plus, there are private parties who would have around 20,000 plus GPUs. Right? This is growing. I think we'll grow our base, right? So that's the second parameter. Third is application and the skills to utilize the AI, right? Again, there we are thriving because, as I said, there are so many AI startups and they all are building applications, right? At 1/10 the cost which, the startups are building in US, right? So it's just a matter of time. Few of the startups will be ahead in the race. They will build that, big momentum and probably become a unicorn as we go, right? The last is the skills and the, know how to deploy. If we really have to see the benefit of AI across the, humanity, you need people to deploy, right? The people who are, having that right skill set, right? Now the point is that if I compare just two numbers, right? One number is that, the supply of human capital in AI in India is around 650,000 supply. Demand is around 8 lakh something. But again, the point is that the next supply is in US, which is around 750,000 approximately. Demand is 9 lakh, right? These are two big base of supply of AI skill set. If you go any other country, that's very minuscule. That's few in thousands, right? So across these four categories, I think India definitely has some of the areas we should go ahead and work, and some areas we are ahead. But again, I think I'm sure we will be in the race.
Nitin, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit more on the last point around the supply side of skills. I think there's a very massive demand for upskilling of AI talent in the country. I personally believe that every single school in the country, all the way from a government school in tier 3 city to a high-profile convent school in metro, should start embedding AI courses. There has to be AI fluency program in every organization. Deloitte has taken up a challenge to run an AI fluency program and ensure that 100% of its employee is AI fluent by end of the year. A similar program has to be run by all organizations, all schools, because if you're looking at AI sovereign strategy for 2030 for India, you need to have a very large pool of AI resources in the country. Without that, we are not going anywhere. You can't have a set of few thousands or a few million people knowing, understanding about AI. So that's very, very critical if you want to go towards that journey.
But we are still scratching the surface somewhere in upskilling and reskilling AI. But the point is, since we are talking about sovereign AI, the draft AI bill is also set to come. So what are 2 to 3 recommendations or, the frameworks that Deloitte would be suggesting their clients to follow? And also, since a lot is happening to follow responsible AI or ethical AI, what is really happening on ground right now?
That's a very interesting question because, yeah, like you rightly said, the draft framework is out and we will see the light of the final, probably the law or the bill sometime soon. So over the last few months, or I would say around 9 to 12 months, the focus on AI risk management, AI governance, AI assurance is picking up. Historically, if you see over the last 5, 7, 8 years, there was pretty much a herd mentality in India. Everybody wanted to implement an AI program, build models without looking at the risk around AI. And there are more than enough accidents which has happened around AI programs. And we read that every other day in the newspaper around biases, around explainability, around traceability. So suddenly corporate India and the world is waking up to the needs for AI governance. Yeah. And some of the things which I tell my client all the time is that start from building the tone at the top. I think organizations have not really given AI assurance provider and AI risk manager a seat on the AI table so far. The seat on the AI table has largely been with the chief digital officer, chief technology officer, or the ops people in whose department the AI is getting implemented. It's very important that risk managers start getting a seat on the AI table. So that is one thing. Second thing which I tell my client is that start thinking about setting up a AI governing council. More often than not, most organizations don't have governing councils. So can there be a chief AI risk officer? How do you kind of manage any kind of accidents? How do you escalate? How do you resolve? How do you report? So AI charter, AI governing council, these are some of the important things which every organization has to start thinking about. I don't think we need to wait for regulation to tell us what is good or what is bad. It's the impetus is on every organization to start thinking about managing the risk which comes from AI. And AI is here to stay. I'm a big proponent of AI, but coming from a risk management background, I always tell my clients that, hey, go ahead. I'm very happy we are doing that, but also look at risk element of AI.
Absolutely, and that's something we have to really put a great thought on it at this point in time as well. But when we talk about the homegrown indigenous, products that we are making, I think, Praval, you're the best person to tell us about it as well. From being a consumer of AI to becoming an author of AI, first up, help us understand you built an entire AI stack without the help of Silicon Valley. What did it take? What can, other tech companies really learn from your experience? And even if there are companies that are building indigenously the products there, the problem happens when it comes to scale. That's where the issue also comes in. If you could throw some light on that.
Sure. I would like to build up on Ankit's point that he made. I think and it comes with anything that is going through a hype cycle. Everything in this world is not a large language model problem. First of all, we have to start with that. Every problem doesn't need a large language model. A classic LLM with dozens of billions or trillions of parameters is not what you... And again, what we don't realize and often doesn't get talked about a lot is the energy consumption. Running these large GPUs is not easy. There's an impact on the energy aspect of it as well, which is often ignored in the hype cycle. So everything is not a LLM problem. I'll give an example. If I'm on business travel, we use a product called Zoho Expense to file receipts. to submit my expenses, right? Scanning a receipt from a restaurant or a taxi or whatever to gather the fields and the value into my expense management system doesn't need a large language model. You know, an anomaly detection in a classic help desk or a support system doesn't need a large language model. These things can be achieved with narrow and small model languages, you know, and we have done that at Zoho. You know, what we call internally and externally is right-sizing the models, because everything is not a LLM problem, okay? It's easy because that's what happens when these large consumer-grade LLMs come up, they make it free, everybody gets hooked onto it, we are prompting these LLMs with the simplest of questions. All that is good and fun, but when you talk real business, if I'm a business owner and I'm subscribing to a Gen AI or a LLM platform, I'm paying for it. You know, how do you make it cost effective? How do you make it sustainable? Is by right sizing the models. So at Zoho, we have taken this approach. We've launched 3 models so far in the order of 1, 3, and 7 billion parameters. We're working on larger models as well for different problems. But most of these typical business use cases around productivity, around speed, around efficiency, do not need a large language model. We've been able to do it, test it, deploy it internally. Like I said, we dog food on what we build. And now we are doing it with our partners. We're doing it with some of the largest customers as well. On everything from quick ML, anomaly detection, agent assigning to problems, all that doesn't need a really large language model. So that is important to understand. And when you're building it homegrown, the reason I was referring to that was when you're building something homegrown, I wouldn't start building the next OpenAI. Don't start there. You know, find a niche, maybe find a vertical, as he said. You know, try to solve problems around one area and then start to solve for adjacent needs. And at Zoho, we have done that with our products, with our platforms. We're doing a similar thing with AI as well. On the other side, building indigenous products from India, as Nitin mentioned, you know, talent is also, upskilling is also very important. There are 2 ways to do it. You go to top tier colleges and hire the top talent and try to retain them, make do with them, work with them. Great, it works for some companies. For Zoho, though, it's been the other way around. We've always gotten students from tier 2, tier 3. I shouldn't even say schools and colleges because about 10% of my colleagues never went to a college. So they were incubated directly from school and they were trained and they work with us. And some of these kids are super smart, you know, and the kind of work they are putting in, you know. So credentials is not important. The attitude and the intent to learn and play the long game, as I said, is very important. So finding, because the problem with India is, and we all know that, it's not something that I'm bringing out from somewhere else, is talent is distributed, very large country with a lot of people in the country, but opportunities are not. You know, so how do we get those opportunities to talent in tier 2, tier 3 is how we look at building software, platform, and AI as well. So we've taken that path and we are encouraging a lot of other young entrepreneurs who talk to us, want to build the next Zoho or do it our way. We work with many of them, we support some of them. And the idea is to seed that thought that India can be the next technology powerhouse. You know, we have the talent, we have the capability both. It's just the mindset that we need to adopt. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's good you pointed out that every problem doesn't need LLM as a solution. So thank you so much. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think India can become the author of AI. There are a lot of opportunities, but risks and governance is something that we need to keep an eye out on and identify the problems and don't copy what's happening over the world, but find out your niche. That's the clear word. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'd like to invite on stage Masuma Parekh to please come up and present a token of appreciation to all our 3 panelists. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for this very insightful panel.